if we request this audit, does it hurt us in any way? If they don't find anything, it doesn't hurt us. If they find something, then of course we're going to be hurt. So if we have nothing to fear, why would we not want this audit? Can you answer that for us, Manusha or Dr. Jimenez?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Quinones, for that question. Yes, there is a caution for the board if you choose to go down this road. Obviously, we have nothing to hide. I mean, all of our fiscal practices are audited every single year. We get a budget letter from county every single year that says our budgets are positive. And so the only concern that I would have is all of a sudden now the district is identified on the FCMAT website that the district initiated, whether it's an FHRA or whether it's an extraordinary audit, and that's in there forever. And so the concerns that I have is the impact that it has with the bond rating companies as they are determining our ratings. So then now you as a district board are signaling, oh, there could be allegations of fraud here in the district. There could be something. And that report then will exist now forever on their website. And so when Mr. Chattery, I know him and I actually, we went up to San Francisco to meet with the bond rating company right before we were going to have the second issuance to make sure that we could maintain our district rating, our credit rating. And we were successful in doing so. And obviously the bond rating companies take a lot of factors into consideration. If this piece were to come into that factorization, now that could be an issue that would impact the district ability to get further loans, to get further bonds. And so that would be my concern, because now you're having a report, no matter the outcome of it, whether it's favorable or unfavorable, no matter what, it would still impact the district's ability to obtain a solid credit rating with that. And Mr. Chowdhury, I don't know if you want to expand on that concern, or if you think
I mean,
that pretty much
respectfully,
covered it.
I think that's fear mongering to say, oh, board, don't do a FCMAT. Your job is to make sure our money is safe and being utilized right. And we went from a $45 million surplus to a deficit. We have 10% savings to 3% savings. When we're closing 4 schools, these are all facts. These are all red flags, and it is our job when we see these concerns to call someone else in to investigate and make sure everything's legit. That is our number one job. And by failing to do this, we're failing to do our job.
If I may,
Yes.
Ms. Serrano, Madam President, perhaps what would really help is to create an executive summary for the board that actually details how those expenses got there, because there are several projects that the district has engaged in where we were directed to go ahead and actually take some of those money from the reserves for certain projects that we have in our district. So we can provide an executive summary that would kind of detail all that, so you can clearly see where the money has gone from with respect when we had a 10% and then when it went down to the current part of having a 3% reserve. Because I think that would help clear a lot of these questions. There's been a lot of things that I know Mr. Chowdhury has presented here every single time as to what were some of the liabilities. There was money allocated to the press box that were not DSA compliant. That costs money. So there's been several things like that. I don't want to go listing every single one because I don't want to create any issues out there that one project is being favored over the other. But there has been expenses that the district has given staff direction for to take money from the reserves to be able to allocate for that. So it's been very transparent. All of those pieces have been covered. And so we've more than likely, welcome that opportunity to be able to do it even in a next board meeting or the board meeting after that, to provide an accounting of where has the money went, because there are very strict controls in our system, and LACO has strict controls. And so all of that can be accounted for, and be able to provide that explanation to the public and the community, I think would be a really great idea.
And just so you guys know, I was in those meetings in closed session, and you could hear me or not, you could believe me or not, know that I'm not a liar. Okay. I was in those meetings discussing the $45 million surplus. It wasn't transparent. It was under the failed leadership of Christine Salazar that pushed along her private agenda, that was pushing us out of the conversations, and she was deciding what she was going to do with those reserves. That's a really big deal. Now, you don't believe me? Don't believe me. Okay, I was there. Okay, And so by you giving me a report of what happened to the reserves, sure, share it with the public. But I was excluded from that decision-making process. Our community was excluded for that. It was not transparent. Certain people, limited, decided what we're gonna do with our $45 million surplus, okay? And so that's a major concern, our surplus. Anybody else want to add to this? Ms. Loera?
Dr. Jimenez, question. With what you said for the extraordinary audit, FHRA can be a warning bell. I forgot what word you said. It just flew out of my mind. Affect our rating that they could see. You mentioned the extraordinary. Will the extraordinary audit and the FCMAT have the same type, or is it only the extraordinary audit, or either or will affect, could affect our rating? Because if they do, then I might have to think about this a little bit more.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Lawyer, for the question. I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Ray Chowdhury.
So thank you, Superintendent. Again, good evening. So one of the things I'm kind of hearing, like the audit part and stuff, and I think Superintendent kind of mentioned, we have our regular audit. It's done by an independent auditor every year. The auditor is appointed by the state controller. It's not even appointed by, we approve the auditor because we are required under Ed Code to approve an auditor, and we cannot just pick up any auditor. The auditor has to be on the list of state controller, and they don't report directly to us. The auditor is an independent contractor. They extensively audit our books, our services, programs, including federal programs, several Title I, special ed, 2 federal or 3 federal programs, state programs. They audit our attendance, and we present that audit in January. And if you remember, not too far back, it's in March, and the auditor presented that it was an unmodified audit, which means there were no findings, right? That's the best audit you can have. And we have had that audit for the last 15 years that I have seen the record of the district, and this is before me. And all along, it has been an unmodified audit. So similar to what you mentioned, Ms. Quinones, on the banks, we have independent auditors that come in and review and report this audit to the state controller through LACO. And that's the audit that usually will find fraud or allegations. And based on that audit, state controller will ask FCMAT to do an extraordinary audit, or LACO, if they suspect something is going on, they will do it. When you call FCMAT for an extraordinary audit, you don't have to have a proof of misappropriation or fraud. And that was the question board president asked. But you have to state your allegation, okay? What are you alleging the fraud on? And you mentioned board member. So board member to board member audit is not really the district audit. It will kind of get into a DA territory, but I'm not going to go there. But if it's one of the school district's executive that there is an allegation of fraud, FCMAT will ask you what specific examples, which specific allegation of fraud are you asking the audit to be. If it's a forensic audit, FCMAT does not do forensic audit. Forensic audit is done by independent third-party auditor. It can be any auditor that can come and do a forensic audit. One key difference is, one of the question was, they can tell us how we went from $45 million surplus to a 3 million or 3%. They will swing the question back at you. Board, you approve every expenses. You have approved every expenses for the last how many years the district has been. If you knew that, and the trend we have been showing in our financial report, that our fiscal balance is going down. The $45 million, there was a surplus because we got a one-time, and as I explained in the board town hall, there was a lot of surplus from one-time funding that we had to spend it by a certain deadline. If we did not spend it, we had to give it back. And then there is also the competitiveness of our salaries that we have to be competitive, and the board approved raises, substantial raises in 2023 of 8% and prior to that 4%. So those are the things that the auditor or FCMAT is going to point back at you, saying that, hey, you approved it and now you're asking how you went from 45 million surplus to a 3%. And the question the board FCMAT will tell you, and I've been in FCMAT audit because I know I've worked with the prior FCMAT CEO, and they will come and tell you, we are asking you to reduce expenditure. We are not going to tell you where, because that's a local board decision, where you reduce the expenditure. It can be in salaries, it can be in travel expenses, it can be in consulting. That's local board's decision. FCMAT does not advise on that. FCMAT is going to tell you that you have to adjust your expenditure based on the revenue. And the revenue is declining because of enrollment. Okay, when your enrollment is declining, you have to adjust your expenditure based on whatever means you have, resources. So the audit is not going to, the extraordinary audit, if you have allegations, they will ask for the allegations. They will have a one-to-one meeting with individual board members. They will ask you for specific allegations of where is that fraud. And then if they feel that's a forensic need, they are very clear, transparent. They will tell you, we are not doing the forensic audit. We'll recommend a forensic auditor that can come and do that audit. But if it is a misappropriation, then they will dig in. And even the FHRA, when we respond to that question, they can say, show me how you're doing it. So it's a little more extensive, but ultimately it's the board's decision. I mean, wherever you feel you are comfortable on, if you want to do that audit, they will do the audit.
Sorry, my question was, that's a great explanation, but I asked, you forgot that one part, like, will they
So-
both of these or one?
Yeah, so the question is always, and I'm coming to that, is when you hear that a school district is going through an extraordinary audit, it raises a red flag, okay? For any person, any investor that have invested in school district's bond. Because the first question they are going to ask is, hey, if there's a fraud going on, does the district have the means to pay me back my investment? Remember, we have outstanding COP, we have outstanding bonds. Investors have invested on those bonds. They are interested in the district being a going concern. Many times, if you have a fraud allegation or a misappropriation, I mean, in private sector, they go bankrupt, but in districts, you get taken over, and then you basically negotiate with all the lenders. So that's a red flag for the lenders. During that audit, it will be extremely difficult to issue a borrowing, okay? They can put us in a watch list, what we call in the Security and Exchange Commission, and Ms. Quinones knows, they will put us on a, just like a stock, on a watch list. Look out for this district, don't invest in this district. And it can go relate to vendors, depending on where it goes. After the audit comes out, if everything comes out clean, that watch list is taken off. But if something happens, then of course there are repercussions. But it's very difficult to answer whether, if we are planning to do an issue between, depending on the timing of the audit and when the report comes out, it usually a forensic audit can take a year. It'll be difficult to do a short-term borrowing from any source.
And will the FHRA have the same effect as the extraordinary audit?
FHRA, no, it just creates, hey, what's going on in the district? FHRA does not, because it's a quick project, quick turnaround, but it will be on the FCMAT website. I don't think it has as much repercussion as an audit, but we will be kind of a small watch list for just 3 weeks to 4 weeks time.
Okay, so what I heard is that it will be, whether it's a FCMAT or FHRA, it would be on the watch list and then it'll drop off, particularly if it all comes back clean. So there's not necessarily a long-term impact on the FCMAT. And for the record, when people say, why did you approve the budgets? Well, I had people here that, gave me a hard time for not approving the budgets. I had people here that were giving me a hard time for not approving the budgets. It's because I was waiving these concerns. I didn't approve the budgets. I didn't approve the expenditures. I was waiving these concerns. The record shows. So this is not something new. And I would, Mr. Latorre, you're there with me. We both had the same concerns. And I would hope that, you know, some of my team members would think like, oh, if we supported her as a president and she's been here for 4 years and she has these concerns, why wouldn't we support in getting a FCMAT audit? Why would we dance around it, right? And then when we meet with them, yeah, we have a list, we have research of tangible concerns. And I'm not going to present it to you guys, I'm going to present it to the professionals. Mr. Kwok?
Thank you. I'm gonna try to say this quickly. The stuff that is here, just understand, this is not an indictment against our school district. It's also indictment against the auditor. It's an indictment against LACO, and it's indictment against the California Department of Education because they put in all of these safety measures. The second thing that I would say, just to make it clear, is that there's no difference between FHRA and FCMAT. FCMAT is actually the one that's going to do this, right? So I don't understand how that got twisted. The other thing is that I completely agree with doing an executive summary that would explain how that happened. That way FCMAT can take a look at this and say, okay, is that reasonable? Because FCMAT will tell you it was all approved. This is not corruption. This might be a political disagreement, but it's not corruption to rise about that. All right, with respect, I think a very interesting issue about our bond rating, okay? Because as we should know, there are 3 bond raters, right? You got S&P, you got Moody's, you got Fitch, all right? As a trial lawyer, I would make this argument. Mr. Ochoa, you can tell me whether or not there's any basis with respect to it, right? But if we did an FHRA, I would argue that the school board is actually watching over their situation and they're just asking for an advisory opinion. To understand it in this way, if you take a look at the most recent report of what FCMAT does, FCMAT will tell you that 80% of what they do is in FHRAs. All right? So over the course of whatever, I think I read something where they've done like 1,200 of these things, right? But with respect to extraordinary audit, is very few, very, very few. And if it were to go that, but there's no cause for it, right? Then what happens is that, and I would say this with respect, FCMAT actually has a website that shows where all the audits have happened. It's never going to go offline. So it's going to show there that this district went through an extraordinary audit. And if you're a bond rating agency, you're not going to go into the whole detail of it. It's just, hey, you did it, right? I don't have the time, the inclination, or the interest to try to figure out, oh, this was a self-inflicted situation. They're just going to see there that this is going to be detrimental to a bond rating. Absolutely, right? This is like asking to go through chemotherapy when you haven't even been diagnosed with cancer. All right? It's like, why do we want to do that? Because it's so devastating. So my suggestion is that we do the financial health risk assessment. We provide them with an executive summary explaining the issues that Madam President has raised. Madam President can have her own independent individual right to submit whatever she wants to submit to FCMAT. And then we go through that process. And then we see what we have there. And then we go on from there and not prejudge it and then make a better decision once that's in. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Okay, so the point is, we just want to convey concerns to these people, let them investigate, do their job. I'm not an investigator. I don't get paid to do that. And so, okay, so as long as that happens, that's kind of the underlying point here. And my concern is that it is political situations that are mismanaging our district, like someone outlined. A perfect example of political misappropriation of our funds is that when certain board members requested a waiver for the COP or for the property sales, they said that those property sale money was going to go to Wedgeworth. This is the documentation. I have the proof. I don't need nobody's second opinion. I have the proof, okay? So now you're asking us to approve spending that money somewhere else. And of course, I thought, yeah, that money is supposed to be equitably distributed across the district. But then again, you're putting me in jeopardy because that agreement said that that money should only be used for Wedgeworth. So now when we're earmarking it for other projects like beloved Workman Field, oh, that sounds great. But you're still putting me in a very hot spot to expect me to approve money that was earmarked for something else in a contract. Now, am I investigator? Am I the lawyer? No, let them do their job because I have serious concerns. And I have a list of serious concerns with proof. And I'm going to bring it to the experts. And once again, no offense to anybody here. I believe it's been political mismanagement and lobbying efforts. Ms. Quinones.
What I'm hearing is the lack of confidence at all levels of government. These agencies that were supposed to be watching over the budgets all approved the budgets and did not stop the budget crisis. So now we have Santa Ana laying off hundreds of teachers. We have Pasadena, we have San Francisco, and all of these were approved by the different government entities. So that's where the lack of confidence comes from the public. For me, it's going to be, if it doesn't hurt us to do an audit and the findings are fine, I don't see a problem with it. Again, because we need to bring confidence back. And today, I mean, in listening to a lot of people and people that do this for a living as far as accounting and things like that, they tell me that they have no confidence in our school districts because, again, the oversight agencies that should have been there, that should have stopped this budget crisis in all these districts have not stopped it. So definitely a concern.
Thank you so much for bringing that up because Mr. Kwok said respectfully that we don't trust our auditors. We don't trust the state. We don't trust LACO by request. That's a lie. There's people that have done misappropriation of funds with all those layers of audits and things have happened. And so that's where we're at. We're waving the red flag. That is our job as a board. And I have provided ample proof today that I didn't need to. I could have just gave it to them. And so let's just do a thorough, just like we did a forensic audit for the bond. If you were there, it got us back on track. And if we didn't do that audit, we would have been over 170 million on that bond. It was because I, Stephanie Serrano, had the courageous leadership, okay, to say, hey, let's try something we've never done. And I even had a special session to discuss this. And Dr. Joseph Chang, that had been on the board for over 20 years, he says, we never had a special session. We never had a special session to discuss the bond. And that's because Ms. Serrano thought of things out of the box. I don't care what we've never done or how it's always been done. I said it's time to be innovative for modern issues. And so I presented, let's have a special session. I presented, let's do a forensic audit. And guess what? That got us back on track when we've made those bold, courageous moves. So we're going to be wrapping it up here. Let's hear our final comments.
Thank you.
Ms. Loida had her finger up.
Thank you. Keep hearing mismanagement, misappropriation of funds. What is the meaning behind that? Mismanagement, misappropriation, commingling funds, unauthorized use, lack of financial oversight, inadequate record keeping, negligence of financial duties, conflict of interest, misappropriation of funds, utilizing funds without permission. Mismanagement, misappropriation is not someone agreeing how the board approved their budget and how they want to spend the money. If you did not agree on how the budget was spent, that is okay. It doesn't mean the district mismanaged or misappropriated their funds. They're two totally different things. You didn't agree with that? That is fine. You knew about the Wedgeworth, about that resolution. You were here when they did that resolution, when the board decided to do that resolution. But then the board, again, a resolution can be changed. The board can change their mind. And the board did decide to use that money for something else instead. It is not mismanagement, misappropriation of funds to disagree with the board majority should not spend. Now, you might have your opinion how that money should be spent. You approved the Workman money that was brought about the board. You about the Workman Stadium. And It was approved by this board. Was that mismanagement of money? Should we take that money away from Workman now and help pay for that for a Wedgeworth now? Because that's what I'm hearing. So if that's mismanagement of money, then we need to take that money, all this money, and go pay off Wedgeworth, and the money that we use to fix this other things that we needed to fix, that we use that money for, then that's what we should do. But I don't think that's a mismanagement of money. That's what the board decided because they want to use that money. Now, I wasn't on the board when they approved the Wedgeworth, the loan, everything that. It's done. And then the board decided how to use that $45 million in other ways. The board could have decided to use that money to pay for Wedgeworth. It didn't. Other things came up, and the board majority, whoever voted, decided, yes, that is not mismanagement of money. That's not misappropriation of funds. That is just someone disagreeing of how the money was spent. And we do not need an audit. And like Mr. Kwok said, Mr. Munoz, they don't tell us how to spend the money. You decided, the board voted. They're gonna ask, why don't you know how you went from here to here where you spent the $45 million? The board approved it. How can you not know? That's not mismanagement of money. That's what the board wanted to do. Now things are changing. The enrollment keeps going down. There's doing more things. So we're trying to fix things right now for the future in 3 years. Right now we're okay, but we need to look to the future to see what's going on in the future. We'll be getting great from the district. We need to plan 3 years out because of low enrollment. The funds are going to be going down. We need to do right now what to do in 3 years so we don't get negative audits. But it does not mean that right now we mismanage money. With the information we had back then, we had the board had the funds, the district had the funds. The board decided how to spend that money. It is not mismanagement of what mismanagement means. We do not need an extraordinary audit and put us on a watch list because someone does not agree with how the board spent the money. It was board majority, many discussions. And just because someone does not agree does not mean now we have to go audit and put us on a watch list. I am not okay with that. Saying that there's mismanagement and misappropriation of funds, unless there's actual proof, then I will be okay with all this. But to put us on a watch list because someone did not get the way how they wanted to spend the money, that's not enough reason to do an extraordinary audit. Because some people who came up here say, no, you should not spend the money that way. You should spend the money this way. That's not mismanagement of money. The board majority decides how to spend the money. With the information we have, the board majority decided. Sometimes it's 3-2, 4-1, 5-0. Everything we voted up here, at least since I've been, and I know even before I got on the board, like with Wedgeworth and how to spend the money, get the loan, it was all board majority. And just because now the board minority who did not get their way back then, now you're saying they mismanaged the money? That's not what it is. Let's be very clear with that. The board, the district did not mismanage their money. They did not misappropriate their funds. They just spent their money in a way that maybe someone does not agree with. So I am not okay putting us on a watch list because someone did not get their way of how they voted. If we decide as a board to get this money and pay for Wedgeworth, that's a board decision. Nobody has brought that up here, but if that board decides to do that, that's what the board does. But it is a board majority. It is not one person who makes all the decisions. So when someone says it was one person who decided all this, it is wrong. It could be considered slandered, saying that one person did all this. So we have to be very careful with our words. To say that
Okay,
one
thank you
person,
so much,
I'm
Ms.
not
Moira.
done speaking.
I
have
think you
not used
disagree
my
with
time.
this, so
I
can we
didn't have
please
not
wrap
used
it
my
up?
time.
You've
Yes.
had a lot of time, so let's please wrap it up.
You spoke
okay?
a lot, so I'm gonna
Let's
finish
please wrap
mine.
it up, ma'am,
Thank you. So
and try to add new things to your comments.
that's fine. So I just want to make sure I am not okay with misappropriation of doing the extraordinary audit and putting us on a watch list. Now, FHRA, I'm still okay right now because I did hear Mr. Kwok's statement about, a lot of districts do that. and it's not going to be that much as of right now, but I will like to wait until we get the information. But as of right now, I'm kind of okay with that, with the FHRA still, if the other board members are still okay with that.
Thank you. I'm glad you agree with Mr. Kwok. Mr. Kwok?
Okay, I'm gonna try to do this very, very quickly here, okay? So I was trying to figure out, is there proof or no proof? But let's go beyond that for a moment. Let's understand something definitionally. Corruption is not a political disagreement. Corruption is your money was actually taken improperly to benefit an individual. That's corruption. So let's understand that. The second thing that I would say is that there is harm to do this if we went through an extraordinary audit when there's really no reason to go through that. And we have people here that say that I'm budget hawks, but what's going to happen is that you're going to have significantly increased borrowing costs. And then it will go out into the neighborhood and so forth. When people try to figure out what school they're going to go to, why would they want to go to a school district that's going to be taken over, or at least the prospect of that? So there is harm regarding that. The other thing I would say is that I have not said that I'm always going to be against an emergency audit. All I've said is I have to see good cause for that. Now, to kind of wrap this thing up, I'm going to make this recommendation. And it builds on what Mr. Rochaudhry said, and actually builds what Madame President said. The bottom line, as what I said, is the most extensive audit is a forensic audit. It was stated by Mr. Rochaudhry, that FCMAT doesn't do that. It was also stated by Madam President that that's what got us back on track with respect to the bond. So I would be willing to entertain to do a forensic audit on our school district. The whole thing, okay? FCMAT couldn't do it anyway, right? But at least we can take a look at it. And then they will look at all these things. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't go back to the original one, because they know already about our district. So hopefully we get a discount over that, right? But I would like to see how much it would cost, right? But I'm okay, at least tentatively, that if you care about all these other things, then let's do something that really would get down to the very end, which is let's do a forensic audit, right? Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you. And so I don't really accept the fear-based arguments where like, oh, if we do this, we're going to be on a list because we waved a red flag, because our schools are closing, because like there's a lot of red flags. If I was a staff member, I'd be like, good, we're taking interventions, we're figuring it out. And so how about this? How about we meet in the middle, right? If you guys have the capacity to do that. So I'm hearing that, you know, a few of you are interested in the FHRA. I think the forensic audit is an interesting idea, except that it will cost over $100,000. So that is also putting us in the negative situation, right? We're trying to avoid. I'd rather be on a watch list and spend $100,000. And so how about this? Let's agree to do the FHRA to get us started. And then let's go ahead and just send us some prices on a forensic audit so we could start exploring that as an option. And then I support a Fcmat audit, but I don't have all day to be going back and forth with you guys, okay? And neither does our staff. And so I think we could agree on that. Mr. De La Torre?
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate it. You know, I've been listening to all of you, and I think you all have valid concerns. I personally would like to see an executive summary of expenditures. I can tell you that, you know, just follow the money, where the money went. You know, obviously, we used a lot of it on programs, which are phenomenal, really good. But yeah, it comes at a cost, you know. And so I'm okay with the I think financial risk analysis or assessment. I'm okay with that to start off. And yeah, I'm okay with you if we can look, see how much the forensic audit would be, and if we can get the discount, since we already did it. Thank you.
And there is corruption in the world, you guys. There's people that go to politics just because they're trying to get $1 out of there, just because they're trying to get their friend a contract. This is nothing new. You're all grown-ups. And guess what? I have concerns about corruption in our district here. Okay, because we have had segregation in our district, and some of these people that were part of these things are still trickling down here. Okay, and guess what? I don't know if you guys heard, is it public that there's a lawsuit against the superintendent? Is that public, right? Or no, not yet, right? So not you. The Kofor situation, is that public?
Can we just?
I'm saying, no, it's very important. It's public, right? So we have a Kofor situation with the previous superintendent and concerns about them mismanaging funds. A previous superintendent right here, not so long ago. So all these concerns, yes, this happens. It happens here. These are valid concerns. Okay, so corruption can only be by staff. We have examples of that happening here. Corruption can only be by politics. I've seen it here. Okay, so let's go ahead. We agree on the FHRA, right? And please have them give me a call because I have a lot of reports
Allegedly.
for them.
Allegedly.
Yeah, all is alleged, right? And so I cannot say anything is happening until there's a full investigation. That's what I'm asking for. I said, and they're trying to bait me. What do you think? What do you think? What is illegal? I need proof. I said many times, I cannot say that. We need to have an expert come in. They're trying to bait me. Okay. So once again, these are all my concerns. Nothing is proven. And we want experts to do that, right? Because if I said it, no one will believe me. You have to pay someone else so you can believe it. So I think we're ready to vote. So let's go ahead and take a vote. It's a discussion. Okay, great. And so can we please bring it forward to the next meeting so we could take a vote?
Well-
And I heard that the majority here was requesting the FHRA. And so I think we could start with that. So moving on, 7.03.